situation, but not like fully, specifically like the rant on Daryl Morey. Um, what are your what What are your thoughts first as a player who's schooled James Harden and could arguably be better than him? I would
That's
say because you beat him in the Drew League, so
no. Here's what I did in the Drew League. I got starry eyed, and I wanted to say I want to go at James. I want to go at James, and so I sized him up and completely outside of my game. I looked him in the eye, and then I put up a shot, and I think it may have in the corner 3-pointer. It may have grazed the backboard and then grazed the rim. And then another time, I tried to take it down on him one-on-one, and James Harden, for some reason, actually played defense and stripped me while committing a foul on a one-on-one fast break play. Long story short, yeah, I didn't get the upper hand on Mr. Harden. I will say that as a 34-year-old, yeah, Summer League, Eddie knows what's up. I will say that as a 34-year-old, I'm not surprised that he would be positioning himself to force a max deal and pay me or trade me. And I don't blame him. I think that the Sixers are not in the best position to negotiate. And yeah, James Harden is terrorizing the league, but the Sixers are going to have to negotiate with a terrorist right now. I'm just saying. Why do you mute yourself? Come on. There you go.
I love just honestly the perfect use of terrorist. I approve of this use of terrorist for
because I'd be getting out of pocket sometimes.
I
do support Palestine. Yes,
like I fully take the stand, and this is not my personal feelings on James Harden, who I think is one of the most overrated players in his generation. He was not in my top 25. He was in Ulric's top 25. I've pretty much, especially in the last like 2 or 3 episodes, I've like really honed in on one simple fact, and that is that James Harden is not capable of winning an NBA champion as the number 1 or number 2 option for the team. At best, he could be the number 3 guy and be a champion at best, but more likely he'll be the 6th man chasing a ring toward the tail end of his career before he goes and plays in China. But what I will say about that, because then like there's the whole conversation on China, I do think he ends up playing in China earlier than he should. Like he probably may have a good year or 2 left. He probably will have to go because he's burned a lot of bridges. Daryl Morey's a very well-respected exec in the league. This ain't Doc Rivers, all right? This ain't Doc Rivers who gets a chance after chance after chance. Daryl Morey comes to these NBA owners and speaks from an analytical place and is thoughtful, not emotional about the way he builds teams. He literally gave James Harden the fucking chance, too. He gave James Harden the chance to spit on the hand that gave you your first opportunity as a star player, as a leading role. Mind you, it was, what's his name? Sam what? What was his name? He ended up being the GM of the Sixers.
Sam.
Not Sam.
No, Daryl Morey.
No. Daryl
You mean
Morey's,
OKC?
No. Listen, Daryl had a dude who was his number 2 at Houston. He technically was the one who had the algorithm.
Okay.
And then he became the 76ers GM, drafted Ben Simmons. He was the GM during that whole era where they drafted Joel.
Trust the process. Yeah. Trust the process guy.
Yes.
I forgot.
Yes.
Forgot his name.
Anyways, so like these guys were the first ones who ever gave James Harden his chance. Sam Hinkie? That sound right?
That does sound right.
Okay. So I think James Harden is shooting himself in the foot in this. This could lead to like teams don't want to deal with him. Like, dude, you forced a trade by pretending to be fat and refusing to play. But here's the fucking truth, and this is what I've said the whole time. You've never gotten out of the second round of the NBA playoffs. You've never gotten out of the second round of the NBA playoffs as the dude. You did when you were the 6th man of the year. You went all the way to the finals. And in every stop, you have further and further developed this persona or facade that is like, oh, I'm him, I'm that guy, and it's like you're not
Houston
that
wasn't in the
guy.
conference finals.
I don't think so. I think they played.
Mm.
I think they played the Warriors in like the second round.
So second, okay, that's fine. Hey, again, there's a lot of great players all time that didn't do anything. That didn't do anything as the guy and had to go float around somewhere to try to win a ring. Barkley, Chris Paul,
But
Karl Malone. There are
no, see,
guys
no,
that
all of those guys, with the exception of Chris Paul. But I would even argue like at least Chris Paul was the number 2 and he got his team there. All those guys took a team to the finals. Charles Barkley in his MVP season, Karl Malone in his MVP season,
John Stockton.
John
Did he
Stockton.
take his team to the finals, or did Malone take his
No,
team to
he's
the
the number
finals?
2. He's the number 2 dude. Chris Paul was the number 2 dude for the Suns. I'll allow it. Kobe was the number 2 dude for 3 of those Lakers championships. Like that is a key cog. Michael doesn't win anything without Scotty. So there's this. The third piece is interchangeable. You need the right fit, but a lot of different types of players can sort of come and go in that third slot. Like think of the Lakers run from 08 till 2010. It was Lamar Odom in 08, then in 09 it was Trevor Ariza, and then in 2010 it was Andrew Bynum. Like the third guy can change over time. Less important. But the 1 and 2, Kobe and Powell, every single time. So that's sort of why I think being a number 2 is acceptable and it adds to pedigree. Number 3, it doesn't hurt your pedigree, but you got to take into account. That's why like you can't give Dwight Howard credit for a championship when you were like maybe the number 4 guy really. After LeBron, after AD, after yes, I'm about to say Alex motherfucking Caruso. But on the China front, I'm gonna make my call today right now.
And don't
James
dwell
Harden.
too long on James.
Yeah. James will change Chinese basketball in the same way that David Beckham changed American soccer. Like people will pay a little bit more attention to the Chinese league in China. Adidas will see a boost in its merch and shoe sales in China, but the rest of the world literally isn't going to pay any attention.
Sports needs to decentralize, and it's doing it with golf. It's doing it with soccer, and China is probably in good position to do it with basketball.
Fair. Although both of the examples that you present in golf and soccer were very much Saudi. So I wouldn't go so far as to say it's decentralized from that aspect. You just have another big player entering the fray.
Decentralized big player, one big player versus 2. That's a big move. That's 50%.
Okay. I'll allow it. But let's dive into it because you've been talking way too much shit. I when I was going over the show doc for what we're going to talk about today, I was like, I cannot believe where this guy ranks some of these players. But we're going to dive right in. If you missed it, we went through numbers 25 through 16 2 weeks ago. 16 was Stephen Curry. So we're going to dive right into the number 15 greatest player of all time. That man himself, Larry Legend Bird. Last guy to win 3 straight MVP awards. The foil to Magic's charm and pizzazz. The dirtiest trash talker in his era. Maybe Reggie Miller, but Reggie Miller I would say actually came after him, so never mind. Because we'll keep it on court. Look, I think like Larry's the perfect example of a player who I think if he had played in this era, he would be even higher. Why? Health. He would have been taking care of himself better. He probably wouldn't have been going and fixing his mom's backyard and doing all that to screw up his back and his career too early. And it's almost a shame because for someone who touts how his formula essentially like, you don't play into your down years. You're good. You're good. You ranked Larry at 19. I got him at 12. Defend yourself, sir.
Yeah. So I had him ranked right behind James Harden. And again, I know math, math. And here's the catch. I can't help it if Bernard King decides to go on a coke binge. I can't help it if David Thompson decides to go on a coke binge. I can't help it that Greg Oden breaks his leg. Sam Bowie breaks his leg. Okay, there's places where part of being great is being able to be available. All right, we're talking bad about LeBron James and how he's not playing 65. He's only playing 65 games because that's he played 57 last year, whatever. Larry Bird, as great as he is, again, puts up LeBron James numbers in his peak. We talk about, I got into a big giant discussion with another Bitcoiner about how Larry Bird's the top 5 player ever. But again, I understand what the warm-hearted feelings, the marketing of the 80s, and it was Larry and Magic, and that leaves a nice warm, fuzzy feeling, tickles you everywhere. It's nice. But at the end of the day, Larry Bird, his time was brief, relative. And we could say, if he played modern day, he would have been greater. Okay, yeah. Kareem played 20 years. Oh, well, that's Kareem. He was doing yoga. It's like Moses Malone played 20 years. There are guys who it wasn't as common, but players did play. And we could say the same thing. Do we take away the fact that Magic, only played 12 years because of HIV? Yes, we do. Oh, he would have done this, or 13 because he came back in 95. Do we take away from it? Yes, we do. Do we give Chris Paul kudos for playing 20 years and being productive? Yeah. Larry Bird is great, and ranking him where I put him 19 and where you put him 10 or whatever, 12. I don't discount that. That is fine. He's a great player. He took teams and guess what? The dominance factor. When he played, and I'm going to have that resonate with the rest of these players. When he played, he was on top of his game. And that's very important. So every one of his years, except for maybe one, was like quality. And that's important. That's the reason why James Harden is where he is. Every year he's played, where in my eyes, every year that he's played has been a quality year. Even his worst years are like still
James Harden right now, not in our.
Okay, we're gonna stop talking about James. Okay, so I'm done with. I'm done on my.
You need to rank James Harden this high because it validates you as a basketball player.
Validates
I respect, but my issue again, and of course, like this is life. We can't. There are things out of our control, and there are things in our control. There is. Like the thing that's out of your control in the NBA is whether or not you get voted MVP. All you can do is perform. But there's a level, I think, of understanding that like Larry Bird winning 3 MVP awards was part of the conversation in MVP voters' minds this year around Jokic. Like, is this guy as good or on that level as Larry Bird? Because that's the last guy we ever gave this to, and that is one of the GOATs. Like, that's the last white boy savior that any white boy is ever going to have in the NBA.
I love white boy saviors. Let me ask you a question. Would you rather have a player that performs, and listen to this, 30, 10, and 10 for 3 years and then done, breaks his leg, dies in a car accident? Or would you rather have a player that does 20, 7, and 7 for 10 years? Now you are a GM. 30, 10, and 10 or 20, now, 30, 10, and 10 for 3 or 27, 7 for 10?
This is a valid question. Okay. Am I GM today in 2023 and it's the next 3 years, or is this in a different time period?
Let me fix that. You're the owner of the team. There you go.
Oh, I'm the owner of the team. Fuck. I hate
because I know because the GM is a high time preference. I got to win now. Give me the 30, 10, and 10.
No, exactly. That's 100%. Where
my questions are going. Yep.
I
low time
100%.
preference.
My thought process
for 20 years.
If I'm the general manager today in 2023, I'm taking the guy with 3 years because, hey, I will go all in the next 3 years to win the ship. But if I've got 10 years with this, again, because I know the player that you're statting out for me here, I'm going to tell you that's a really good number 2 or number 3 option. And I can spend the next 10 years finding the right number 1 and another number 2 to pair him with.
Absolutely.
And then I can win a championship as the owner. I can have that patience to deal with James Harden.
And so what I'm saying is Larry Bird is closer to the 30, 10, and 10 guy because his peak years, those MVP years, I'm like, there's no one else better than Larry Bird. Like this guy was LeBron James before LeBron James ever came, but it was so brief in time. And that's why, yeah, Drazen, I knew Eddie was going to bring that up. And that's kind of why I kind of brought up the 3 years and yeah, rest in peace, Drazen. He was a menace, but when we think about Larry Bird, very similar, very dominant, very brief, and we can't punish the guys who kept that longevity by putting Larry Bird artificially too high. That's why, for me, 20 or 19. He was 20, and for some reason, with my math, he gained a position, probably because James Harden did bad last year.
Yeah, he did. All right, we're moving on up, though, to number 14. Greatest all time, the logo himself, Jerry West. So I started the last one. I'll let you start here.
Yeah, so I put Jerry West way higher, and
yeah, you had him at 10. I had him at 20.
And here's the funny thing, and with my little math, and one day I'll release this website and maybe write a book, Bitcoin's 400,000. I just quit my job and start writing about basketball. Jerry West was at one point in my 2022 year, a 4-way tie with Shaq, Magic, Jerry West, and David Robinson. Forget the math. Just know that I had him very, very high ranked. Now with like the way the math broke out, I have him ranked at number 9, I think. Yeah. And so the catches with West is the dude was another archetype of LeBron James, and in the worst possible way, not the big numbers, but the losing. He kept losing finals every year. It was depressing. And if you watch Winning Time, you can see like the coloring of it. I was like, oh my gosh. And season 2 is out, but season 1 is like, wow, West was on his even though
I haven't started season 2 yet.
Oh, I haven't started it yet. But I would say that season 1, that was my favorite part, was seeing the despondency of Jerry West. But he was also an archetype of someone else in a more positive light. Now Steph Curry, and this was before the 3-point line. And so again, conjecture, of course, but when you consider the efficiency that Steph Curry, and I'm bringing him up, I'm sorry, James Harden, the guys who are like off the dribble, catch and shoot, just amazing at the 3-point ball. And you look at the way Jerry West played back in the day, a lot of those shots were coming from way, way too far back, and they were worth 2 points. Even if he had a small inkling of those being 3-pointers, if he had the incentive to shoot a 3, he averaged 27 points on his career. He was the best player on the Lakers with Wilt there, with Elgin there, with Gail Goodrich.
He was better than Wilt Chamberlain on the team that won the finals, albeit he did win the finals MVP.
Yes.
Actually, no, he didn't win finals MVP the year they won. He won finals.
West did not. So Chamberlain did.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I'm looking at maybe the regular season.
One of the only players ever to win finals MVP for the losing team.
1969, he was the only player. And I would say that you going back and looking at his dominance from a scoring perspective, highly efficient, and the fact that he was the best player on his team in overall, even though maybe Chamberlain won he averaged 20 rebounds a game back then. But West being so impactful, taking his team to 9 or 10 finals, I give credit to winning in playoff series, even if you don't win it all. I don't play the zero-sum game. Oh, if you don't win the finals, then it's all for nothing. I don't care about, if you want an MVP, if you're second MVP, you're nothing. I give credit for people being the number 2. Otherwise, Kobe Bryant is a loss. Otherwise, LeBron and Jordan, all those years that they should have won when they didn't, is a loss. So when you get to the conference, when you get to the NBA Finals, all that because of you primarily, and you just miss one series, you got to give credit where credit's due. So yeah, Jerry West is a monster, and there's a reason why he's the logo, and they ain't thinking about changing anytime soon.
So I hear you. As a Lakers fan, I have the utmost respect for Jerry West, even with the current drama. You got to respect the man, what he built, both as a player as well as an exec, but we're focused on as a player. And you and I have talked about this, and I did my best to factor in the fact that while Jerry West's skill set probably wouldn't really compete with the top level players today if you just took them at face value, there is a sort of like balancing act. And of course, like the players don't get better in next generations without the work of the players in the past. So I'm giving him credit there. I'm accounting for the fact that he doesn't have the 3-point line and was a deep jump shooter even without it. These are things that matter, but other things that matter. Yes, Jerry West and Bill Russell played in the NBA Finals against each other. What was it, like 10 years in a row? You know how many total playoff teams played in the playoffs on each of those years?
Yeah, I believe it was probably 8.
Correct. 4 for each division. So that's realistically, you just made it to the conference finals. And that's where things like those early Celtics championships shouldn't really be that real. I'm fine giving up the Mikan championship, but y'all got to give up the Bill Russell championships because all you really did was win the conference finals. And if all we're counting is the conference finals, then honestly, Ulric, you're probably right, and LeBron James should be the GOAT. But we're not counting conference finals. We're counting NBA finals. So even with a shorter path to the finals, those Celtics teams were incredible. They were built to win, like literally. And Jerry West, only player to ever win an NBA Finals MVP as the losing player. And yet still, he isn't. I think you have him ranked too highly. Ultimately, what this man accomplished was he played in an era of basketball where he was one of the best in that era. Absolutely. One of the best. Honestly, top 3 guys in his era with only Wilt and Bill Russell being better than him. Absolutely. But then when you start stacking it across generations, you have a hard time justifiably saying like, you're like, honest to God, do you think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander today, right now, is not a better baller, just straight up basketball player than Jerry West?
Here's my argument with that. I think
no. I want 25-year-old Jerry West versus 24-year-old Shai.
I think Shannon Brown is a better player than most of those players. But what I'm saying, so again, we don't play we don't play back. I don't play Back to the Future games. I say the NBA is what it is at that point, and the NBA is what it is at that point. And what did you do in the NBA in 1998 versus 2008? When you go back, I mean, honestly, if you were to go back to 1983, I'm sorry, but the guys that were in the NBA at that point, they did it all this. It wasn't just like, oh my gosh, now everyone's better. No, like there were slow dudes out there with mullets and porn stashes that Jordan was beating up on. That's why the argument is Jordan played against plumbers and then Jordan didn't play against plumbers. Jerry West was smoking in the offseason and selling real estate. Whatever the case may be, that's the universe that you're in. And so I judge by the competition of the day. How were you comparable to the universe that you played in? There's no alternate universe. We're not playing Marvel versus DC. So we're not playing time capsule stuff. Otherwise, literally everyone right now is better than everyone in the past, including the 90s.
And my point has been made. We're going to move to the next player on the list. None other than the big German fella himself, Dirk Nowitzki. You have him ranked at 12. I have him at 17. Honestly, like we've kind of talked about this pretty much. I would say 10 to 25, you're really splitting hairs. Like there are a couple players where it's like, yo, he's definitely sort of in the better camp, but like Dirk, I personally even feel like I have him a little too low. And I like one of the things, and we're going to talk a lot about this on this episode in particular, is like the influence and impact you have on generations to come. Dirk Nowitzki ran so Giannis and Jokic and Luka could sprint. And I always love hat tipping Mark Cuban to this, but I will, and even honestly, Porzingis. I will always give Mark Cuban credit for this. When Dirk retired and it was like they had gotten Luka, so they were really trying to establish like, yo, we got the European guy. Like and Mark Cuban being the freaking billionaire that he is looking at this like, I have the opportunity to capture multiple generations of just European basketball fans. If I had last generation's best European basketball player, and then I get the next generation, and then he goes and gets Kristaps as well, and really tried to cement that. Unfortunately, it just didn't work, but I love hat tipping that. But that doesn't happen without Dirk, and that is a legacy that like continues to exist, build, and grow. I mean, he had one of the most unstoppable. He's a 7-footer who was pulling up from downtown, but then had that just dirty knee in your gut fade away from the elbow. Arguably one of the top 3 most unstoppable shots with Kareem's skyhook, and then you can just switch out Jordan shooting or Shaq dunking on you for the other one. But I turn it over to you.
Yeah, I like the nostalgia. I like all of the nuance that you said, the business practice from Cuban to put that player in the limelight as he saw the success with that initial European talent. Dirk Nowitzki is essentially a scorer. Everything else he did paled in comparison to the fact that he was a 7-footer with a 3-pointer, and he ran so the other 7-footers who could shoot threes could sprint. I tell you that Andrew Bynum really wanted to shoot threes. And if he played 10 years from when Nowitzki was around rather than his contemporary, Brook Lopez.
They'd be telling him like, start working on that 3.
By all means. By all means. So it's like, it's just funny how quick things change because of one player. Nowitzki, again, I think that the reason why it's so funny, we talk about Larry Bird, we talk about James Harden, we talk about Karl Malone, Kobe Bryant, people who Steph Curry. These, for some reason, there's more contest about them. Where do they rank? Oh, this guy doesn't have a ring. This guy hasn't made it to the finals. He's not the number 1. There's a lot of stuff about those guys. Nowitzki never carried that conversation. He was almost the most out of the top 15, 20 players. He may be the most under the under the radar type of player.
Totally.
I think he's 6th in all time in scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about that, wow. And he did, and looking back at his stats, he really didn't fall off until the last 2 years. His last year almost didn't count. The season before,
he was injured for most of that last year. But
right.
to quickly give you this, like, first consistency, 14-year NBA career, 12 All-Star selections.
There you go. And with there was a time when they were doing this thing where they were giving the grandpa award to Nowitzki, Duncan, and Kobe, where it's like these guys making all-star games where they shouldn't have. Maybe they did it for Wade, and that kind of triggered my reasoning for creating my metric when it came to dominance. Like, these guys should be punished for holding up, for playing around out there like I was limping around in the NBA. You know, it's like, why should he be out there scoring 3 points a game and say, "Oh, look, let's celebrate this"? It's like, no, that's a negative count against him. But I will say, even with, Kobe, Duncan, Nowitzki having those bad years, you can't take away that over a decade of just balls to the wall. Wow, this is the guy, and you have to game plan against him. And on top of that, winning a ring, as the uncontested leader of the team. So that's important. I don't know how many MVPs he won. Did he ever win an MVP?
He won an MVP in the year after they lost to the Heat in the finals. They were the number 1 seed and then lost to the Warriors. That was his regular season MVP award. And then a few years later, he made it to the finals against LeBron and handled LeBron that loss, and LeBron and the Miami Heat. And then I just want to quickly correct. It was 12 all NBA selections, not all star. So it's honestly, that's
Much
even
better.
stronger.
That's right.
That's even stronger.
And that's why he is where he is.
Totally. He was so consistent. And it was one of those things where he played in the era with both KG and Tim Duncan. And he was the third best power forward because he wasn't the traditional 4. He was never going to lead the team in rebounding because he played too far away. But he gave, honestly, Kevin Durant is probably a closer archetype to him than Giannis is. So, but KD's just faster and has a quicker release. But even still,
we start getting to the point where these guys are the epitome, the best versions of they define. Now we're defining. It's the Dirk Nowitzki archetype. You can't even like Kevin Durant is the best Kevin Durant. Nowitzki's the best Nowitzki. Now we're getting into that point where it's like, these are the guys that people will compare others to for years to come.
Not only that, too, this is the last point I want to make, and then we can move on to the next player. Dude, but even before you finally.
Ruh-roh. Is that me or him?
No, okay. Internet at the Airbnb right now. But essentially, dude, Andre Bargnani being a number 1 overall pick was literally like, he's the next Dirk Nowitzki. And Andrew Bogut being a number 1 overall pick only happens because you're chasing that Dirk Nowitzki high. So there was even a period while he was in the NBA when he was like the reason why teams were sort of looking in certain directions and picking. And that, again, that's an intangible that doesn't show up on the box sheet, but it's something to where it's like, now you literally, a whole fucking continent is now a just vibrant pool of excellent, not just all-star caliber, MVP caliber players, champion caliber players. And it doesn't happen without Dirk Nowitzki. So, but let's hop on over. I reserve the right to mute you at any point during this next one.
Who's the next? Oh man. Here we go. Everyone's gonna hate me.
This is the widest margin. I'm so angry I'm talking about him on this episode. I'm so fucking pissed off.
You literally
I'm muting you. You're already pissing me off. You're muted. So, if you have not figured this out yet, at number 12 overall on our cumulative all-time greatest, we have none other than Kobe Bean Bryant. Ulric has him at 23. Fucking disrespectful little shit. And I got my boy. All right, I'll unmute you. Now, I want to start.
Hey, that's a Bitcoin Leota. That's Bitcoin number.
No, I'm gonna start. So, is Kobe Bryant the greatest basketball player ever? No. No, you can't be the greatest if you copied someone else. Like I buy into that logic. He didn't do it as good as Jordan. He didn't. So for that reason, like automatically he's not there. But like what he did, not just in the world of sports. Let us not forget how his name was dragged through the mud in 2004 and the accusations that he had. Everyone drops him. Then they get dropped, and he comes back almost bigger. Everyone loves him more than they ever did when he was younger. Now, mind you, from what I've gathered in the books that I've read and people I've talked to, like he was every bit a punk when he was a young man, and he burned a lot of bridges. And that is part of the reason I believe why certain players wouldn't come towards the tail end of his career to the Lakers, because he had burned a lot of bridges throughout his career. But this is the guy who is number 3 all-time scoring. You got, am I still there or am I gone?
Oh, you're good.
Okay,
You're
okay.
good. I think you're gone mentally and you're gone
Fuck you,
emotionally.
fuck you,
Keep
fuck
going.
you. Get the fuck out. All right, we got a 5-time NBA champion, 2 of those finals MVP, 6 total final appearances. You want to talk also consistency. You've got, where's his all NBA numbers? No, I don't. His
Everyone
12.
can research those
All right, fine. He's a
themselves.
12-time all defensive player of the year, a 15-time all NBA player of the year, 20-year career, 18-time all-star. And the dude won a freaking Oscar to boot right after he retired. Look, you're just being disrespectful. You're being a hater. You're not a real, like, thank you. Bitcoin's a like, oh, like straight up.
Stop
I'm
talking to
like,
the crowd.
shut,
Stop talking to the
shut.
crowd.
I'm so angry at you. This shouldn't be the episode we're talking about him. We shouldn't be talking about him at 12 for the same exact reasons that I just said, that Dirk is excellent. Dirk is great. How many point guards are scorers because they grew up watching Kobe pull up and shoot?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, man. The impact, the
Derrick
way
Rose, Steve Francis,
no, Steve Francis was a
Raymond
contemporary.
Raymond
No,
Felton.
hang on. Steve Francis was a contemporary of Kobe. But I'm talking about the players he impacted. Look at someone like a Devin Booker. Look at someone like a Donovan Mitchell. Dude, you have to appreciate how great this man was in 2 separate roles. Once as second fiddle, and that role alone as Shaq's number 2 was good enough to warrant a top 25 spot on this list. If he literally retired after losing to the Detroit Pistons, he would have had a Hall of Fame career. You would have him in your top 25 all time. We wouldn't even think about it. And if he came into the NBA starting with the Lakers in 05 as a non-playoff team, work your way up.
He came in 07. Be careful. Don't be giving him extra years.
No. I'm splitting his career in 2 for you to establish that both halves of this man's career are not only Hall of Fame, as Bitcoin Zay has kindly pointed out, but they're also top 25 all time. So for that reason, how you have him at 23, sir, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. There's a lot of things that go into Kobe Bryant's very well embellished awarded career. And in the same things, in the same reasons that where awards were taken away, Steve Nash 06, 07, are the same reasons that he got a lot of extra play, if you will. I was looking at 1999. He was 3rd team All NBA. There were about 3 guards that were better than him. But if you go back and look at the way that the NBA presents itself as a marketing brand, there's a reason why Daryl Armstrong would not get 3rd team All NBA, but Kobe Bryant would. because there's a vision of how these players needed to be promoted, how these players needed to be elevated in order to increase overall revenue for the league as a singular product. Not, hey, let's just give players, let's just put the best players in those awarded positions. So that's why I ignore all NBA. That's why I ignore all defensive team, all-star nods. He got 2 all-star nods when he was averaging 15, 16 points a game. It's beyond the point. Let's talk about the fact that while he was the guy, that the Lakers missed the playoffs for essentially half his career while he was the number 1 player on his team. Let's talk about that. We give
only
him
one of those he is in his prime. Every other one of those years is post Achilles tear.
Okay, that's fine. Post Achilles tear.
Yeah.
No, he tore his Achilles in.
They made the playoffs.
When did he tear his Achilles? What year?
2013.
He tore his Achilles in 2013.
Yeah, I was in college.
He tore his Achilles at the end of the season.
Yeah. At the very end of the season in 2013, he tore it against the Golden State Warriors.
Are you sure it wasn't 2014?
No, dude, it was the year they had like Dwight Powell, and Steve Nash. It was that season.
And so again,
they ended up as the 8th seed. Got swept. He didn't play the next year.
Right. Oh, okay, so that's fine. So we're saying that we don't say, hey, this guy was a leader on the team, on an abysmal team in 2015, 2016. What we don't say is he wasn't a leader on an abysmal team in 05, 06, 07. What we don't say is that he was a leader on an abysmal team in 2013, 24, and 2012. Abysmal, again, if it was LeBron, it would be an abysmal team. If it's Kobe, it's like, look at how great he is. We judge players at a different scale based on how much we want to love them. At the end of the day, Kobe Bryant, just from a comparison point, Jordan did it better than Kobe. Yeah, Kobe was in all intents and purposes worse than LeBron in points, rebounds, assists, which are the key to playing basketball. He is also worse than LeBron in every statistical category. He is also worse than a lot of players that you guys right now are talking about, whether it's J-Dub or Bitcoin Zay, talking about, he's better. I can't believe he would be higher ranked than these guys. These guys that you may compare him to, which we're going to henceforth, these guys won while they were the number 1 player on their team. Kobe Bryant is the storybook result of what Scottie Pippen could have been. He is a could be Scottie Pippen in another universe.
What?
And yes, that's right. We always forever we talk about Scottie Pippen. Oh, could Scottie Pippen win without Jordan? Think about Kobe's world with Shaq, 3 championships, and then a pause. Then you had Scottie Pippen, 3 championships and a pause. And they always wondered, like, could Scottie do it on his own? He never could, but Kobe could. And that's why Kobe's way better than Scottie Pippen. That's why I got Scottie Pippen.
No shit, Kobe Bryant better than Scottie Pippen.
That's right. But guess who he's not way better than? Guess who he's not way better? He's not way better than Shaq. I'm sorry.
No, I have Shaq ranked higher, but he's way better than James Harden, who you have ranked higher than Kobe Bryant. He's way better. Kobe Bryant is way better than Larry Bird.
Sorry, I just can't. When I look at what every game that they played, and I'm like, again, go back to your owner standpoint. Are you going to take a player who is going to give you XXX or X minus Y, X minus Y, X minus Y? And Harden will give you XXX. Larry Bird will give you XXX. Kobe Bryant will give you X minus Y, X minus Y, X minus Y. Oh, by the way, he's going to got that dog in him, or he's going to jump over a car. He's a much more marketable player. I understand. And we got a lot of brainwashed, fiat-minded people that bought into that dynamic. Don't mute me. No, you can't.
I'm going to mute you. I'm going to mute you.
Nope. Okay.
Your argument's not sound. Can I make your argument for you? Can I make your argument for you?
Go ahead.
Kobe Bryant, I love the man to death. Like the Mamba mentality.
So do I.
No, you don't. That ranking, you don't. Right?
do. I do.
Disrespect.
Love is the truth.
If you looked Kobe Bryant in the eye when you meet him and you tell him this, he
When?
will fuck you up.
No,
And
he
I
won't.
hope I'm there to see it.
No.
Listen,
No.
listen. All right. This is your argument, and this is why he is 5 for me. I'm gonna say it, but Kobe Bryant, the guy who is so anti the triangle offense, is actually a system player. His best years all consistently came with Phil Jackson at the helm. And you have significant drop-offs when he played in the year of his prime. Who was his coach? Rudy Topjanovic, or however you say that guy's name, who was sick, came out of retirement, was barely there. No leadership for a player who needed guidance at that point of his career, because now you're being handed the reins. Look, it's Kobe's fault they screwed up, sure, but the Lakers did not build the right team around him. Kobe demanded a trade from that team. You have Kwame Brown, and look, I love that Smush Parker steal in the series where the Lakers go up 3-1 against the Suns. Unfortunately, they ended up blowing that 3-1 series lead. But you know who's the coach of that team? Phil Jackson. Literally, they bring Phil Jackson back, and they're back in the playoffs the very next year. So whether I like it or not, Kobe is a system player. You know what system he really didn't like playing in? Mike Brown system. He didn't like playing in Stan Van Gundy's system. He didn't like it so much that his Achilles gave out because Stan Van Gundy, I'll fuck you up if I ever see you Stan. Sorry, not Stan Van Gundy.
Stan Van Gundy.
No, sorry. What's his fucking name? Mike D'Antoni. Fuck you, Mike D'Antoni. You are the fucking reason. Why the fuck are you playing a 35-year-old fucking Kobe Bryant 38 minutes of fucking game, you moron? Like, no wonder you've never played in an NBA Finals. You will never amount to anything. Mike D'Antoni, you are the reason Kobe Bryant tore his fucking Achilles. I hate you.
Let me. It's funny that you mentioned
best
that.
Lakers team ever. You had Dwight Howard in his fucking prime, Kobe Bryant in his fucking prime, Pau Gasol's still an elite fucking player, and you couldn't get it done. It's Mike fucking D'Antoni's fault. That does not hurt Kobe's legacy.
And you know what? This goes to the fact that players are in certain situations that happen to benefit them. You know, Magic was a coin flip away from going to the New Orleans Jazz. You know, there are situations that enable you to be successful. You don't think that Alex English was a dog, you know, that Adrian Dantley was a dog, and they're ranked up there, you know, 63rd, 48th, whatever they are in my rankings. The fact is that history affects how you're placed in all time, and what the dice that you're rolled, what you do with them matters as well. And not to take away what Kobe Bryant did, because he did great stuff with oftentimes with really bad dice rolls. But as you get to these players in the upper echelon, some of them had bad dice rolls, yet still, you know, almost biblical. But God, I'm not trying to be blasphemous, but there are some players in the NBA, but this guy, yet with trash. So I'm saying Kobe Bryant with trash ended up being mediocre at best. His stats were great, but we're talking about the team's performance. There are players that had trash teams, and they were like, wow, they're a relevant topic in NBA history. I don't again, my top 25 is still, like, when you think about all the players that have played, Kobe Bryant being 23, 22.
Disrespectful.
I think he's a great player.
Disrespectful. We got to move on, though. We got 5 more players we want to hit today. We're going to go to the next player on my list, or on the list. This is just deplorable. At number 11, you got the Admiral David Robinson. We have Ulric ranking him at number 7. Continues with his streak of just asinine picks. I have David Robinson down at 18. Look, I'm gonna let you start. I started the last 2. You can start this one. I'm still pissed.
David Robinson is the epitome of as perfect of a career, polished of a career as you can have. And the only detriment against him is that, yeah, he didn't play long. So compare him to Larry Bird. He was more dominant, but Larry Bird had the better team. So you have to consider David Robinson had more to do with his team's success than Larry Bird had to do with his team's success. Wild. Oh, wow. Yeah. But when you consider that Larry Bird had Mikhail Parrish, forget the guy who's the announcer still right now, Dennis Johnson. You have Bill Walton as role player, Danny Ainge as role players. Again, David Robinson, his early parts of his career before Duncan got there, it was just him and Sean Elliott, and they were still going to the playoffs, and he was getting crazy numbers that would be, oh yeah, like, okay, of course he got 23 points a game. Of course he got 25 points a game in a time when the teams got 80 points a game, 79 points a game, 90 points a game if you're a big time scoring team. His percentage of contribution to his team was immense compared to what you would have a guy who's scoring 26 points a game now, but the team is averaging, even the worst teams are averaging 108 points a game. So long story short, David Robinson was putting up modern day numbers in the worst shooting time frame in NBA history. Not to mention that he was getting a massive amount of blocks, a massive amount of rebounds, and was just efficient, made his free throws, didn't turn the ball over excessively, and he won. And guess what? He didn't have those years where he started off running and he had one essentially bad year, and it's like, okay, it's time to hang up. When he had his downturn, his team actually started winning. So he took a backseat to Duncan, still was productive, was winning, didn't get the 28 points a game, 27 points a game, but he was winning. So it contributed more to his productivity. And then when it's time to go, it's time to go. He didn't have 3 years where he was hanging around like Nowitzki, Kobe. You could say other people, Moses Malone. It was a pristine career. He walked away when he had to walk away, whether by hook or crook. I think he got hurt, but I don't count that against him. So
he didn't get hurt.
He didn't get hurt.
No.
Okay.
He was 37 years old.
He's 37
years old.
He
started his career.
23
4
Navy.
years, 4 years, and then also served 2 years in the Navy.
It was a polished, pristine beast of a career, and it should be looked at as like, this is the way. There's no shortcomings except for the last season. Go ahead.
So your bias and hatred towards Kobe shows when I'm going to point some things out. So Tim Duncan was drafted in the 1997 NBA draft. All right, that was the year before. Actually, David Robinson got hurt. He only played 6 games. Spurs get the number 1 pick. All right, makes sense. Before that, this was a double machine. Lowest scoring average was 23 points. Lowest rebounding was 10.7. All right. His first full season back, both from injury and with Tim Duncan, he goes 27-10. The next season, it's 15-10, and then the next 4 seasons, he does not average a double-double. He does get 9.6, but it just continuously goes lower and lower, as does his scoring. In fact, his final season, an NBA championship season, he averaged 8.5 points and 7.9 rebounds. So, and look, I'm not defending my boy Shaq for the way that David Robinson just spurned him when he was a high school kid, and then Shaq was on a mission to just embarrass David Robinson for the rest of his career. That's not why I hate David Robinson. I think David Robinson is just Kevin Love, and he was just in his situation for longer than Kevin Love, and he was able to stuff the stat sheet. Yeah, he got a quadruple double, to your point, because he had no one else to fill up those box score stats, and he's an excellent player. I'm not going to knock that. He was in his prime a top tier caliber player. Kevin Love grabbed 30 and 30, man. Like, he was a top tier player in his prime in Minnesota.
But look at his career stats. Look at Kevin Love's career stats. Look at David Robinson's career stats. I'm not saying that Kevin Love is better than David Robinson. I'm with you that David Robinson is better than Kevin Love, but situationally is what I'm trying to like paint the picture of. And I think if David Robinson actually had a second fiddle for the first 7 years of his career, you wouldn't have seen the same statistics. And I think there's a little bit more of these are inflated numbers. And then you start to get
I think the most realistic season you can look at is his Tim Duncan's rookie season, which is 97-98. He averages 21.6 points, 10.6 boards, shooting 51% from the field. He's doing about 73% from the foul line. He's doing 2 assists and 2.5 blocks a game. Like that is the actual statistics of David Robinson when he has quality, when he is also quality. I'd say maybe there were a couple of years he would have gone higher, but I think his overall statistics would have just declined. He wouldn't have been the type of player who still got his. And
before you go on with that argument, I have to counter. You say Kevin Love. Remember, Kevin Love's stats in Minnesota, no playoff positioning. I can't find the place, but let me just say, like, his 89-90 season, you would think a throwaway. Okay, his rookie season where he averaged 24 and 12. You know what the San Antonio Spurs record was? 56 and 26. They were first in the division. So when you're talking about that Kevin Love, he's just a glorified Kevin Love. Yeah, if Kevin Love was scoring those points and was on the best team in the top 2 team in the conference. So the reason why David Robinson is so pronounced is that, and so different than Kobe Bryant, is that he was actually putting up amazing numbers and his team was winning. So that's the catch that you don't talk. I would say Kobe Bryant is closer to Kevin Love and padding stats, because Kobe Bryant's best year is 35 points a game. Bryant's point.
You like these players that don't make it to the finals, like James Harden as well. Like James Harden, David Robinson never played in the NBA finals.
I like players that win. They win.
David Robinson didn't get there until Tim Duncan showed up, until he had like a viable number 2.
Winning, that's what I'm saying. Like you talk about the zero sum argument. If they didn't make it to the finals, then they suck. But I'm not saying.
But he had 7 years to make it to the NBA finals, and he never did.
If you didn't make it to the finals, you suck. That's the problem with the traditional argument. I'm saying suck. That if you're
a GOAT, you're not in that caliber.
That's right. And I'm not saying he's a GOAT.
You have him at 7. You have him at 7.
That's not GOAT.
You have him at 7 and Kobe at 23, and you don't see a problem with this. And this is
David Robinson was always.
This is going to be a really stressful episode.
David Robinson was much more dominant than Kobe Bryant ever could have been. Kobe Bryant had horrible weaknesses that left disappointments with his team on a near every other season basis. Every other season, on average, Kobe Bryant played 20 years. 10 of those years were disappointments. David Robinson played 12 years. Maybe 2 years were a disappointment. And we're talking about disappointment, not like, he missed the finals or he missed we're talking about they were non-existent in this grand scope of that season. Kobe Bryant's teams were not existent. David Robinson's teams were always in the picture. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson. You taught me how to shoot really well, but I'm saying that shooting, that is a problem that Kobe Bryant had. And maybe if Kobe Bryant shot less or shot his mouth off less, he would have gotten Carmelo Anthony. He would have gotten LaMarcus Aldridge, some other type of player to help him out. But maybe he didn't want that help. Maybe he wanted to be a big fish in a small pond. Oh, don't mute me on that one. That was toxic.
No, that was fine. We'll go to the next one. I want to make the next one quick because we talked about him a good amount already, but we consensus ranking have Bill Russell at number 10 overall. You have him at 14. I have him at 10. I'll keep it short and sweet, man. No one's won more NBA championships than this man. He has more rings than fingers. The Bill Russell Finals MVP award is literally named after him. So you want to talk legacy? Like, this man has had an impact. Ultimately, like, I even think I have him ranked a little too high. I do maybe weight championships a little more than you do, but at its core, Bill Russell for me is never in the top 5 conversation. Like, there are a lot of centers above him because you played in an era where it was you and Wilt and then one other 7-footer. Okay. There are only 8 teams in the actual playoffs. Okay, like play with a 16 team playoffs. I'm sure you'd have a lot less rings. Play in this era of the NBA. I'm sure you look a little bit more like, I don't know, Roy Hibbert than you actually do to like a Shaq dominance level player. So I'll turn it to you. I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask you to do this in 3 minutes or less.
Oh, easy. Bill Russell is so is as much as Kobe Bryant was idolized and marketed by the NBA. I think Bill Russell was even more so. Civil rights, whatever, I don't know. But when it boils down to it, if you looked at the stats, there were so many other players that had such a big contribution to the Celtic engine. In fact, even two of those championships, there was this white guy. This like he's almost like what would you say? He's almost not Kevin Love. He's almost like Kevin Love without a jump shot, where he is just like the cleanup guy. Something Howell. I forget his name. I don't have the stats in front of me. He had more win shares than Bill Russell did in three of the last finals that they participated in, and they won two of them. But the catch is that Bill Russell is sort of like the person that they put on a pedestal, say this is what represents those wins, not necessarily the reason why they won fully. So when you compare him to Wilt, because that's the classic comparison, or even Kareem, Wilt, any team that Wilt played on, they won because of him solely. And you can even say the same thing with Kobe Bryant post Shaq. Any team that Kobe Bryant played on, they won or lost because of Kobe Bryant. You can't say the same thing for Bill Russell. He is the most integral part, but it was almost like a plurality where he wasn't like, he didn't have, it's Bill Russell and the guys. It was like, yeah, they were like the guys, and Bill Russell was the chief guy. So long story short, he's there because he had so much playoff presence. He had so much defensive presence, but he's nowhere. All the Jalen Rose talk about, Bill Russell, it's just that's why he's fired from ESPN, because he doesn't do his math, he doesn't do his homework, he's an idiot. And Bill Russell respectfully ranked in the top 25, but nowhere near the top 5.
Yep. All right. Let's hop on over now to number 9 overall. You have him at 13. I had him at number, I think it was 11. Number 11, Dr. J himself. Won the championship against the Lakers in the 80s. It was profoundly impactful to a lot of players from the 80s and even early 90s, especially guys like Jordan, guys like Magic. Like, this is a guy who, if you appreciate players like Kobe and LeBron, you have to appreciate the guys like Magic and Jordan who came before him. You got to appreciate a guy like Dr. J who came before him. So goes without saying, like, this man belongs in every single top 10 list. And I think you're a fool if you don't have him. And of course, neither of us have him in our top 10.
I think because we're somewhat smart. I think we understand that he was, and here's the thing, I gave him credit for his ABA. He was Jordan in the ABA, but he was almost like the original version of, I'm going to play beyond the years that I should be playing. And I punish him for that, just like I punish Kobe or whomever. When it boils down to it, he put up buckets, and we're too young to see him play to analyze the nuance. But he won. When his teams were bad, he was the best player on the team. When his teams were good, he was the chief contributor, if not maybe number 2 at the worst. Moses Malone. He had a great career, and I don't fault my positioning for him at 13. I think he is where he should be. He's the best ABA player of all time.
Absolutely. I think the ABA games, if they were NBA games, like, he just gets bumped up in rankings real quick. Nope, that's not what I want to do. But let's go on now to number 8 all time. You actually have him at number 8 all time. I have him down at, I might not put him in my top 25.
There's
No,
there's no way. You had to have put him somewhere. I think you're just looking at the numbers wrong. We'll figure it out later.
15. I have him at 15.
Okay.
You have him 8. It is none other than easy money sniper Kevin Durant, um, wettest jumper in the game right now. He is an NBA champion. He is an NBA champion. Twice.
And Finals MVP.
Like dude, it would be so easy to make this argument if him and Russ took down that OKC team, and then it was KD versus LeBron in the finals in 2016. Like that would have just been no doubt about it. I'm trying my best not to do the emotional he won the championships on this team, blah blah blah. The NBA totally screwed up the way they did the salary cap, yada yada yada. He still performed, and he still performed at such a high level that he had the best point guard in the game active at that moment in time, and that guy's game dropped off, but he was still the top point guard in the game. And I think that says something to the caliber of player that Kevin Durant is. My biggest knock on the man is I feel in my bones if he had that Mamba killer mentality that Kobe does, we're talking many more championships than what this man has with the rosters he's had, with the teammates he's worked with. We talked last year, I think leading up to the playoffs, it was the Suns are a viable championship team now. We know how that sort of went. I think everyone's sort of looking at them this year. I don't have really high hopes for them. I think he will consistently be a scorer. I think he will. I don't think he'll pass LeBron, but I think he'll come close. I think he will enter the threshold of maybe a top 3 all-time scorer. But I don't know if we're ever going to see him win another championship. And I think his days as the dude, I don't think he wins another Finals MVP for sure. But that's what I'll say about him.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter because he did all those things in the past. Whether he has another peak season or not, that's fine. He's not going to go down too far unless he has these Kobe years in my eyes. He's too productive. He's too efficient. Guy has done everything that people complain about. Was the best player on a team, went to another team as the best player on team, went to multiple teams, best player on those teams, and arguably will probably be the best player on this team, the Suns, if he stays healthy. And because of the fact, not because he's a better player than Devin Booker. Booker's in his prime. KD's 34. KD's going to get rebounds. Just from a numbers perspective, he's going to be more productive. 22-7 is better than 25-4. So Kevin Durant, people don't like him. People like to argue with him. He's going to be on Twitter talking trash, blah blah blah. He's not the clean cut. He's not the perfect child like post 2004 Kobe. He's not lovable like Shaq, and he likes that. And honestly, when you, it's just from a numbers perspective, just from the fact that he will be reliable 25 points a game on a relatively winning team. He's had down times, but his down times were when he was more likely hurt. There's very little to complain about to him other than public appearance. Yeah, he is a top 10 player all time. And honestly, he's only going to go up, in my opinion. Probably not that much higher, but he can only go up.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think if he has some bad years, which are on the table, possible, he can slide down this list a little bit.
Right, that's just math. I can't imagine his type of game would actually go, right, especially with the teams he's playing with.
He will be capable. Down. If he stays healthy, he will literally to the day he retires be a player who's capable of giving you 20 points a game. Until the day he retires. I've seen this man play in person, and his shot is so nice. You don't lose that with age. You don't lose
It
a
only gets
shot.
better. It only gets better. Right. So unless, yeah, and so picture Ray Allen or Kyle, picture better Kyle Korver, Ray Allen, and then all and
7 foot
6'11.
Ray Allen.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God,
Which
you're
means he'll
never gonna
also
get fuck.
rebounds. Just, I mean, the rebounds just, he doesn't have to jump for rebounds. So now he can play. So think about the fact that I think James Harden, Steph Curry, those kind of guys can play until they're 38 because they can shoot. We know that because Kyle Korver played until he's 38, but they're
Right.
way better than him. So now you factor in now 6'11, and LeBron has played, he's playing until he's 40, 42. KD could not easily, but may pass him in the all-time scoring if he stays committed.
It's only about health for me. It is 100% about health because like being a little bit taller, it has strains on your organs, and he genuinely just might not be able to go as long. But the thing that fucking, as we're talking about this, like there is a possibility that we actually have not seen the best version of Kevin Durant, because if he can, dude, if he can find the spot in this team as the number 3 guy, all right, Brad Beal, he is your point guard. Now you've got Booker, who's going to also dictate the offense, and then all you have to do is KD, just get open and shoot. I don't need to get physical down low. Let me preserve my body. I make 7 to 8 3-pointers a game for the next 6 years of my career. I'm doing just fine.
And the reason why that will be the best version of Kevin Durant is not because he'll put up insane numbers in the regular season where he's going to be averaging potentially, let's just say 20 points a game, his lowest ever in a regular, season format. The fact that he's going to have his legs for the end, for the playoff run, deep in the playoff run. So now all of a sudden that 30 points a game that he was doing, that Devin Booker was doing, it's repeated. And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, he's averaging 35. There's no stopping him. Everyone's tired and he looks like he's 24 years old, but he's 34 years old. What's going on? Because he didn't have to do all the things you just mentioned for 82, 62 totally. Games, however many he does.
I want to get through this last one quickly because we are way over on time, but it is none other than the better of the Twin Towers, Timmy himself, Tim Duncan, coming in at number 7 all time on our list. You have him at 9. I have him exactly at 7. And I just want to confirm this. Yes, this is our number 1 rated power forward based on our list.
I can't help you with that on math.
Fuck off, Siri. I didn't ask for your fucking help. Stop eavesdropping, you cuck.
Techno authoritarianism. We are the Bitcoin ballers.
Look, I think we're both in agreement on this. Tim Duncan's the greatest power forward to ever play the game. Better than David Robinson. That's for dang sure. Look, this was my least favorite player growing up. And you get older, like hatred really like tells you something. And you hated him because he was really freaking good. And those Spurs teams were really freaking good. And I have so much respect for the way that, like, I love the fact that him, Dirk, and Kobe, entire career, even David Robinson, your entire career with this one organization, like, received the baton from David Robinson and then made a point to pass it on to Manu and then help Manu even. It was Manu's team for a while. Manu won Finals MVP.
I don't remember that, but okay. That's fine.
No, Manu won.
They shared that all. Okay, that's fine.
And then Manu passes it on to Tony.
Kawhi.
And then no. Tony won a Finals MVP, bro. They all
want to be sharing. More reason why Tim Duncan. I would continue your argument.
Anyways, like he was okay. Actually, Manu never won, but I know I know that Tony Parker won a Finals MVP.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yes. 07. That was his Finals MVP. So look, ultimately, like I'm just talking, but like this is one of the greatest players ever played the game. Just fundamentally speaking, too, like from a like pure basketball, like Mr. Fundamental, the big fundamental, like dude, like you show kids footage of Tim Duncan of like how to properly shoot the last great bank shot probably ever in the game. I rest my case.
Yeah, that's fine. And David Robinson, let's just go by career averages. I'm not trying to compare too much, but he averaged 33% more. I'm sorry, 50% more blocks a game than Tim Duncan. So David Robinson, we always talk. You want to bring up defense and how great Scottie Pippen is. David Robinson was more of a force on the defensive side. David Robinson was more of a force on the offensive side as well. Tim Duncan had a longer career, and I reward people for that. And Tim Duncan was great. His peak was not better than Robinson's. The best that Tim Duncan had to offer, you could say, is 01-02, is nowhere near as good as as Robinson in 93-94. So I can rest my case on that. That being said, Tim Duncan inherited
Goodness Tim Duncan had players. He had a team. The Spurs were in the playoffs every freaking year as a result of him and the team.
You are all, and guess what? Some players have good coaches, and some players have good teammates, and some teammates are so good that it takes away your own greatness. I'm not saying that Tim Duncan couldn't beat David Robinson one-on-one. That's not what I'm saying.
If Tim Duncan joined the San Antonio Spurs in 1989, he would have put up similar, if not better, numbers than David Robinson.
But now you're talking about revisionist history. If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander jumped into the DeLorean and went back to 1963, they would be worshiping him, and we would have ended civil rights. We wouldn't need civil rights. It's like, oh my gosh, this guy is way better than all the brothers we had back then.
No Canadian was going to bring us world peace.
What I'm saying is that stop the revisionist history. David Robinson did what he did at the moment. Tim Duncan, what he did with that team was remarkable. Yet still with a better team, he still put up amazing numbers and was always an all-star. Only missed because of injury, because he was injured at the wrong time. And guess what? He was so good that when he sucked, they still voted him in. In fact, when he sucked, the coaches still voted him in, which is even crazier. He had 14 points a game in 2015, and he got an all-star bid as a coach's nod. So what does that say? He wasn't even popular with the fans. He just had the coaches mesmerized. That is an interesting dynamic that I've never seen, not even about Dirk and Kobe. What I will say is that because of his role playing his last 7 years, that takes away from him being a top 5 player that people would want to argue for, or even better than Robinson, which Robinson was never a role player except for his last 2 seasons. So I'm not going to, it's burnt out to compare Duncan and Robinson. We can do it all day long. I will say that Duncan is good. There's very, very few gaps in his play. I would say the last 2 seasons, a lot of older players who, when they play 18 seasons, their last 2 is going to be that's why LeBron is where he is. That's why Kareem is where he is.
LeBron's season's not really. He looks a step slow, but he's filling up the box score. But again, you put David Robinson above Duncan and Kobe.
I did,
Bryant, and I'm telling you right now, David Robinson put himself over those players.
Magic Johnson put himself behind Kobe Bryant. I don't care. These guys are dumb. Okay, they're dumb. They're dumb.
Oh, outstanding analysis from the Bitcoin Ballers. Needless to say, for my fellow Lakers and Kobe fans, I apologize for my co-host. I didn't never want to publicly admit this, but this Make-A-Wish show, the Make-A-Wish child, and I'm making his dreams come true. So
nothing has ever made me more happy than to hear myself talk on YouTube on a weekly basis. The ego.
Ulric is like half of our views. He just goes back and rewatches. But on that note, it is getting late here. I am hungry. I am also very upset still. Kobe is at least a top 5 player. Ulric, you need to go think about a lot of things you said today because you heard a lot of
top 5 in your heart.
All right, you're done. You're muted. It's fine. It's good. We're out of here. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Bitcoin Ballers podcast. Be sure to catch the FIBA Basketball World Cup starting next week. Goodbye.